First at 4, the tug of war over Michigan's gas tax. State Republicans say it's time for relief. We'll tell you why it won't happen right away, no matter what. We're also tracking the human cost of the Russian invasion in Ukraine. More residential buildings hit, and what the Ukrainian president says his country needs right now. Here's Paula.
Hey folks, I want you to take a look at this. This is rarely seen. We're going to take you inside a lab to show you how COVID-19 is actually jump-starting science in other areas.
And today, as expected, a little bit of a setback temperature-wise, but we have a nice warm-up coming. Wait till you see the temps coming the next 2 days. I will have that coming up first at 4.
Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News First at 4 starts now.
Good afternoon. I'm Devin Skillion in for Karen today. First at 4, a Republican-sponsored bill to suspend the state's 27 cents per gallon gas tax is now on its way to Governor Whitmer's desk. The state Senate voted today to suspend the tax, mostly along party lines. The House passed that bill last week. The bill calls for a freeze on the 27-cent tax from April through September. However, the bill wouldn't take effect right away because it didn't get enough support from Democrats. Governor Whitmer's office just sent us a statement saying there are better ways to save Michiganders money since this bill would not reduce the price of gas until next year at the earliest. She says she's hoping to work on other bipartisan measures. We're learning more about how Dearborn police located a bank robbery suspect in a unique hiding place. Police say Charles Woolery walked into a Dearborn Federal Savings Bank on March 2nd, gave a teller a note announcing a robbery. The teller put about $1,700 into a bag, handed it to Woolery. He took off. After reviewing surveillance video, police tracked him to a parking lot across Michigan Avenue where he was arrested in this porta potty. He is charged with armed robbery. We'll have more on what else was found along with him coming up tonight at 5. Now, a Local 4 update. The man wanted for a fatal shooting in a Detroit hotel has also been found dead. We told you about the shooting at the Normandy Hotel on Woodward yesterday. Jamar Tubbs was wanted in connection with the shooting that killed a 46-year-old maintenance worker. Detroit police tell us Tubbs took his own life when he came into contact with officers yesterday. That entire situation, though, both sides of the case remain under investigation. On the international front, Russia is stepping up its attacks on the capital of Ukraine and pushing a humanitarian crisis into new levels of desperation. We are tracking the key developments from Kyiv all the way to Ottawa, Canada. On the left, you can see the destruction of another apartment building in Ukraine's battered capital. On the right, that's Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speaking to the Canadian Parliament in Ottawa. Kimberly Gill standing by in the newsroom with more. That speech likely, Kim, a preview of his address to our Congress tomorrow.
Devin, you're probably right. Good afternoon to you. Ukraine's president will speak to the United States Congress, as you mentioned, tomorrow morning via video link. Every day, he's pushing the Western powers to do more to stop Russia's bombardment of Ukrainian cities and attacks on civilians, including women and children. You can see evidence of the attacks with video like this coming out of Kyiv. Firefighters were forced to battle powerful flames as a 15-story apartment building was hit during a series of Russian strikes. At least one person died. Several had to be rescued. One of the most desperate situations, though, is in the port city of Mariupol, where people are under siege there with 2,300 killed and residents desperate for food, water, heat, and medicine. Today, more than 2,000 cars managed to leave along a humanitarian corridor, with thousands more waiting to escape today. President Zelensky told Canada's parliament his country needs help right now.
Close the airspace. Please stop the bombing. How many more cruise missiles have to fall on our cities until you make this happen?
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pledged his country's support for Ukraine, but NATO nations have said it's not feasible to set up a no-fly zone since that would require members to attack Russian forces. The White House says President Biden will go to Europe next week to meet with allies in Brussels in response to the ongoing war. Meanwhile, Russia has put its own sanctions on President Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and other U.S. officials. And finally, Russia's refugee crisis continues to grow. It is estimated another 300,000 people have fled Ukraine in the past 24 hours, bringing the total to 3 million. So, Devin, we are monitoring any new developments and we'll, of course, bring you updates as needed. For now, we'll send it back to you.
All right, KG, we'll see you at 5. By the way, our coverage in the war in Ukraine will continue at 5 right through NBC Nightly News. Lester Holt, reporters from around the world, will be right here at 6:30. Back here at home, you might be seeing some raindrops this afternoon, but they should be clearing out. Let's check in with Paul Gross for a check on our first forecast. Paul?
Yeah, hey, Devin. Yeah, most of us have dried out. We had a few scattered light showers during the afternoon, but basically you can see here on the east side is where all this stuff is. We'll just kind of zoom it in just a bit, give you a better look. You can see Anchor Bay, Harson's Island, and another area around the Port Huron area. So not big deal stuff. We're just talking about the last of it. A few raindrops moving out, and we should be dry for the rest of the evening. Now, we did have a little setback temperature-wise today. Northern suburbs are only in the 40s. We do have some 50s to the south, but we're going to do much better than that over the next couple of days. Now, for this evening, though, quickly falling into the 40s through the evening hours, and we're going to clear out initially, and then we may have some fog develop later on tonight. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the 60s, and we'll talk about the upcoming weekend, again, in just a few minutes, Devin.
All right, Paul. Medical research at Henry Ford Hospital about to fast forward thanks to the health system's rapid response to COVID-19. As the pandemic starts to wane, scientists and researchers are making a big shift in how they're using the machinery brought in to fight the coronavirus. So let's get to Paula Tutman joining us from inside Henry Ford Hospital's microbiology lab. Paula?
Hey, Devin. Listen, first of all, I want you to know that these are some of the unsung heroes of this pandemic, the people upstairs. All the work they do informs what the doctor does on the patient level. Now, these machines we're about to tell you about, they would have been in the pipeline maybe a year, maybe 10 years down the road, but certainly the pandemic catapulted them into existence and service.
And this is the facility that does all the infectious disease testing for our system.
This is a rare look inside the epicenter of COVID-19 virus detection. In the early days, not knowing exactly what they were looking at and what it meant to the human population, the microbiology lab at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit became the go-to. The unintended benefit of having to react so quickly to a global pandemic will actually jumpstart science as these lab technicians and scientists do a pivot from just COVID to a variety of other things we can't see but can hurt us, like bacterias and viruses.
We went from doing 100 samples a day to a couple hundred samples a day to, and during the peak of Omicron, we were doing 2,700 samples a day.
These dream machines that allow for such fast detection of severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS-CoV viruses change the ability to detect COVID quickly and efficiently. So testing went from painstaking, labor-intensive, hand-by-hand, sample-by-sample testing to feeding a machine that can read microscopic growth levels through the vial without even opening it by the hundreds, and now will be used to supercharge research.
A system like this is a dream machine because it can do multiple specimens on a kind of a continuous basis. We can continually load these systems, and they just churn out patient specimens and results.
The technology can even sound the alarm and trigger surveillance for new antibiotic-resistant superbugs, other potential pandemic caliber viruses, as well as illnesses doctors have always struggled to manage, like C. diff, tuberculosis, MRSA, the so-called flesh-eating bacteria, and forms of strep that can enter the body of a pregnant woman and kill her fetus before it's born. All the kinds of nasty, dangerous microbes that these scientists can now detect faster and more efficiently because of the machinery brought in to deal with COVID.
But what COVID has done is it's accelerated that process, right? It might have taken us several years to invest in this technology, but because of COVID, we invested in that fairly quickly.
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, this story really allowed me to get my science geek on. This is fascinating stuff when you think about how this pandemic was actually able to jumpstart medicine and research. So that's what's coming down the pike. Also, the ability to surveil future viruses. This is incredible stuff that's happening now because of the pandemic, Devin.
So right, Paul. Always so fascinating to watch where the ripple effects from one technology, the way that they run off into so many others. It's absolutely fascinating. Yeah. All right, Paula.